So, for the last few months, and specifically for the last few weeks, I've been struggling with an idea of how to produce a new format, a way of talking about ideas. And I think I finally came up with it this morning, kind of combining my need to get out and exercise with my ability to speak more clearly my ideas, expressing my ideas. I typically do that better when I'm walking instead of sitting still. So I figured this might be a good opportunity for me to combine getting some exercise and expressing some ideas, and hopefully maybe even create a spot for other people to join me in exercise and discussion of ideas. I think it would be really interesting, kind of like a talk show combined with exercise. I'm really fascinated by Kevin Nealon's channel. He actually does this pretty well, but his discussion is very topical. Usually he has on
How rude! Come on!
exciting people that are doing stuff in entertainment, Hollywood. You know, they're walking around the Hollywood Hills, holding a selfie stick. But interesting people, and he kind of interviews them, kind of like a talk show. I'm fascinated by that format, and I have been for several weeks now. And I'm thinking that that's probably what I want to try to do, is have some big idea discussion rather than topical entertainment type discussion. Big ideas while walking and getting some exercise. I think this might be something interesting that I can do in the future. But I'll certainly do a few episodes until I'm persuaded to do something else. We'll see how it works. Thinking about a new show. I'm struggling with the idea, basically daily talk and walk. I think I'm going to put that on the new channel, Think More Labs. Basically, it's a way for me to think through my ideas. In other words, fleshing them out. It's one thing to talk, but when you actually go back and listen to what you said, I think it might turn out to be something interesting. And hopefully every idea that I have, I will, after I speak my mind, hopefully I'll be able to go back and support my thoughts and ideas with evidence. So a few of the things that I'm thinking about are, socialism, climate change, border wall, things like that, things that are dividing our nation right now, and maybe talk about those things and throw out some new ideas that maybe a few people haven't heard before. And typically I think the problem is people haven't heard the ideas that I'm speaking because they are not in my bubble. They're in their own bubble. I try to consume a diversity of ideas, although like most people it becomes very hard. Things that you disagree with, you would like to hear less of, not more of. So how do you expose yourself to new ideas when many of the new ideas you find disgusting? Like socialism. I would say probably 3 years ago. Maybe more like 4 years ago, I thought socialism might be an interesting idea. Of course, the story you hear in the news all the time, at least at that point, socialism, Venezuela, look at how prosperous they have become. Now this was 20 2014, 2015, Venezuela was the big deal. You know, everything works in Venezuela in a socialist economy. How could that possibly be? Well, turns out it didn't work that well. And turns out actually that socialism performs exactly how we predicted it would. So all those ideas of socialism have been shot down. But let's say socialism didn't fail in Venezuela. So in that circumstance, people would say, "Hey, look, socialism is working great in Venezuela. What are you complaining about? It's a fantastic thing." And I would say, you know, at that point today, I would say, okay, well, is there another example? Because we have many examples of capitalism, how it works. You know, there's some bad things about capitalism. There's some truly negative things about capitalism. But look at what capitalism has done for the world. Look at the one source that has pulled millions out of poverty. And see if you can get anything close to that with socialism. You know, even with Venezuela, I'm sure we could shoot holes in the Venezuela thing. Anyway, so that's kind of the idea. There's a few more things that bother me, but I think it's lack of, I don't want to say education, because education sounds like you went to school and learned something. Maybe there's a better word. Exposure. Exposure is, I think, critical. You've got to expose yourself to new ideas, or ideas that you disagree with. But I think one of the bigger things, what I'm going for here is, I see this specifically in my niece and nephew who are lost. They are lost in a world of bad ideas. And it's not just the large geopolitical ideas, it's that ideas that they choose to hang on to that help their narrative, that don't expose them to the bigger view of the world. So I'm using that as a model. How do I fix my niece and nephew? And maybe that's where I need to go, is how do I convince my niece and nephew of ideas that they don't like, that, you know, I'm going to say they're truth, but certainly they're my idea of truth, and I would say probably the majority of the rest of the world. You know, I called them Marxist the other day because I don't believe that they think they have any duty to the world or themselves. They clearly seem to think that other people should help them and they should not help themselves. And I completely disagree with that. I'm sure there's lots of socialists and Marxists out there that would disagree with me, but you know, I boil everything down to a small tribe of people, you know, 20, 30 people, small tribe of hunter-gatherers, maybe even farmers. That's my role, or that's my model of the world when I have trouble making things fit. And that's really what I do a lot of times, is I think through a lot of these things, and I don't think most people do. I think most people just have a thought. They don't think it through. But going back to the small tribe of people, if you reduce the world to a small tribe of people, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, you've got, you know, 2 or 3, 4 families of people that are struggling every day to make things work, to live, to exist on this planet. And if you go back 10,000 years, life was really, really tough. There was no farming. or at least we have no evidence that there was farming, or very little evidence. People were not herding animals much. At least we can't find any evidence of that. So 10,000 years ago, the few people that were on the planet, I think there was less than 1 million, you know, they had to scrap and scrape for their existence. We don't have a big picture of how humanity lived, but we think that they were nomadic. They moved across the planet when they depleted their resources, or when resources became scarce. You know, herds of animals moved, they moved with the herds. Much like the Native Americans did, or at least the Plains Indians. So, to try to make my point a little bit quicker, this 20, 30, 40, 50 people in this tribe of people, I think it's a really good model, because if you say everybody has a role to play in the survival of this small tribe. So what is your role? How do you fit into this tribe? How do you contribute to the success of the tribe? So in other words, you know, you got 40 members of the tribe, 20 women, 20 men, and, you know, sprinkled in some kids in there, you know, but basically, you know, 20 women, 20 men. So I'm thinking the men are going to be the protectors, the hunters, the builders. Any kind of structures that need to be built, it's probably going to be built by men. Women are going to fall into a typical role. I know this may upset some of you feminists out there, but, you know, a typical role for a woman is maybe gathering food. The men are hunting, the women are gathering, and the children are helping however they can with some of the chores. But I would suggest, in the model of my niece and nephew, there's not a lot of people that just hang out back at the teepee. You know, just not, yeah, come on, let's go gather some fruit and some berries and some herbs. You know, some herbs to make some tinctures for wounds. Yeah, nah, I'm just not feeling it. I think I'm gonna just hang out here at the TP and play on my iPhone. I just don't see that as happening a lot. And the few times that it did happen, there was probably something that these ne'er-do-wells engaged in something else. You know, I don't like hunting, I don't like gathering, I don't like building. So therefore, I'm going to invent religion. I'm going to talk about how the world moves, how the stars move around the sky, the moon, the role of the outside world, and what it has to do in its effect on our world. I think that's an interesting concept, and maybe that's what the handful of people that chose to, God, it can't even be a handful, just think about that. You get 10 men, you get 20 men supporting a community of 40. So 20 men have to go out there, bust their balls every day to get food. And I'm thinking maybe not even that many. I'm thinking you've got resources that you've got to protect from your other warring tribes that maybe they're not much into hunting too, because hunting is a tough business. So maybe if we just focused on taking from other tribes, you know, man, we've been out hunting. We've been out hunting for the last week, and we've come back empty-handed every day, and we're starving. But Bubba's tribe down the river, they have been very successful, and I think, and I've convinced my tribe. Now we think that they're in the best location. They're at that perfect spot on the river where the animals cross, and that's why they're living high on the hog. They're living high on the hog, and rather than hunting, I think we're just gonna go take their stuff. So if that was the case, and I bet that is very likely that has happened throughout time, we're hungry. We can't find food, but it appears from all this meat drying around your camp that you've got plenty of food. So you are evil. You're taking all of our food. So we're gonna fix that. We're gonna come take your food. The first war. First of many wars. Tribe A against Tribe D. I think it's pretty simple if you think about it. But also, I think my initial point was 20 guys can't go hunting if you're gonna have 5 or 10 hang back and defend the tribe. Defend the tribe, defend your women, defend your children, defend your stores of food. So, you know, maybe there's only 5 guys going out and hunting. So maybe the real good gig was staying back at the camp and warring with the other tribes, or building weapons, or, yeah, geez, I don't know. I just kind of always seem to reduce the complex issues like socialism into simple models like early tribal humanity. Maybe I'm an anthropologist and I don't even know it. Anyway, so that's about it. An introduction to a new idea to talk about ideas